right. Okay, we are on air. It is 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started and see if anybody else comes in throughout the meeting. So welcome to the City Council Community Planning and Transportation Committee for Thursday, June 22nd, 2023. We have 2 items on the agenda this month. Our regular public transit ridership report, and then a discussion regarding the Wood Creek Neighborhood Trail Project. So we'll go ahead and get started with item number 1, which again is the public transit ridership report, and we have city staff here to give that to us.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. A lot of the same headers on our report, but I'll go into some detail. The first one being our route changes, and the transit center is coming along really nicely. Councilmember Holman probably sees the changes more often than I do, but the exterior work, it seemed to rain once a week for there, and then when it rained a lot, so concrete was delayed and just exterior work in general. So we hope to pick that up this week and next week. Get all the concrete done outside, and it'll start taking better shape. Structural steel will be coming in the next couple of weeks, so we'll be able to get rid of those columns where the bays or where the buses will go. So those are still there, but that should go away in the next month. And we're in a good place for meeting our current October 1st, hopefully effective date for routes. And then we have a bid out for our bus stop additions for the new routes, and we hope to receive those bids, or we should receive those bids in the first week of July, and then a contract to come to council later that month to get the bus stop contractor, concrete contractor going on the bus stops. So
awesome. October 1st is my birthday too, by the way.
Oh, okay. So hopefully
What a serendipitous.
Well, is it technically a Sunday this year? Because I thought about that later.
Haven't looked
It
yet.
probably will be technically October 2nd, I think. But anyway, October 1st is what we're shooting for, if I'm right. But on our grants, we're doing a little bit of waiting and see. We submitted that bus and bus facilities grant for the 6 CNG cutaway buses, and we should know next month or August whether we got that award. And then we found out that ACOG's, our quality grants, should be available August 1st, so we'll be looking at those and probably coming to council for some resolutions of support consideration in the near future for those. Microtransit, it's exciting times, so on Tuesday you'll have a proposed contract for your consideration for that service, and it's in your memo, but that was that late night service Monday through Saturday from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I think this will be the first time ever that we've had transit service on Sundays, so that's very exciting. Plus, we had that weird moment in CART where we had a safe ride bus route, which was late night, but this will be the first time we've gone past 10 p.m. since then. So expanding those hours of service, getting more people where they need to go outside of what we've been traditionally able to offer. So
how many responses do we get for that?
we got 3.
3.
Mm-hmm.
And so city staff, I guess you all evaluated all those?
Yep, it'll be in your staff report when the
Okay.
agenda's published, all those details. But yeah, we had a selection committee.
Was our ADA coordinator involved in that search pick? I had a question about that from Progressive Independence.
I'm sorry, when they were in the middle of doing that, we were in the middle of transitioning.
Right.
Because Jesse Hill left the city in
Right.
March.
Right.
And so it was just unfortunate timing.
I can't remember when Malin started, but
At that same time frame, I think Malin is still sort of adjusting to
Yeah.
his
I
new
think it
role.
was into
as AD.
April, Malin started.
if there's specific concerns, I'd be happy to address those if we have any questions from the public.
They wanted to make sure first that, ADA aspect was a part of it.
Yep.
That those
That'll be
concerns or whatever were being considered when we were picking whoever we were going
Right.
with.
I don't want to get into too many specifics before the agenda is publicized, but there will be accessible vehicles, so I think we'll be well taken care of. And if not, it's a pilot project, so we can always adjust levers here or there and figure out how to do it better.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
The big fleet maintenance and vehicle procurement section, I'll just quickly say, we're still anticipating about 15 revenue vehicles next month. So out of a fleet of 28, 27, we're going to make drastic improvements in the next
Yeah.
few weeks. So
Okay.
very exciting. I don't want to jinx it, but we might stop asking you for bus money at some point. But
Okay.
at least for the near future.
Yeah.
In the far future, we might have to come back. But and then I'll wrap up here. Another great month of ridership in May. We exceeded May of 22 again, like similar months in the past fiscal year. And now we're at 300,000, just over 300,000 passengers for the fiscal year. And as I've been saying in past months, before we took it over, it was our last real year of pre-pandemic ridership was with OU, because mid-year of our first year was when COVID, or I guess 3/4 away,
Yeah.
is when COVID started here in the U.S. So comparing it to that last year of OU with the routes that we took over, it was 330,000 passengers with fixed route and paratransit. So we'll be pretty close.
Right there.
Yeah, which is amazing. Not, I can't tell you how many exactly, but the fact that we're back to pre-pandemic levels, not everybody is.
Right.
And we talked about that the other day, Jesse. There's a few in Oklahoma that aren't back to pre-pandemic levels, so we're pretty excited about that. Never missed a day of service throughout that whole time, and we're able to keep the buses going amidst all the chaos at first, for sure, but throughout the whole period. So just another great month. The average daily ridership was, almost 1,200, which is great. And then I've mentioned this before, ridership per service hour. That's really a great metric to look at, and that's kind of embedded in the report. But the average fixed day weekday ridership for ridership per service hour is 17. So that just means 17 people were on it any given hour. That could have been, 30, 34 people this hour, 0 this, but on average it was about 17, which is
Right.
a great metric. I mean, that's awesome.
1,200 fewer cars on the road every day,
Yep.
maybe, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Trips and,
Yep.
Yeah, or if they don't have access to a car, that's 1,200 more trips, opportunities, people getting to their job or recreation, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, 50% increase on the Lindsay East route, notable.
Yep.
All of them with an increase except for Social Security, but that's just one less person actually, so.
Yeah, it's not drastic.
Yeah, no, continues to look healthy every month.
Yeah, and Saturday ridership went up pretty well too, which is exciting, so.
So people are riding the bus.
The buses are not empty. Yeah.
Yes, people are riding the bus and they're using it to go to work, they're using it to go to school, all sorts of things, so.
And I'll just make the plug again.
Yeah.
I'm happy to ride with anybody, any of you all, any of the public, anytime we can schedule a ride and jump on the bus, so.
Yeah. Any comments, questions from you two? Okay, well, thank you very much,
Thank you, sir.
staff. Appreciate that. And again, anybody watching at home, if you're interested in public transit, tune into this committee every month. Fourth Thursday of the month, we get this update of ridership and update on our projects. So tune in and send us your comments and questions if you have them. Okay, so item number 2 on the agenda is a discussion regarding the Wood Creek Neighborhood Trail Project, which, if I recall, was a project of former Councilmember Brandy Studley in Ward 1, aiming to provide a little better connection between the neighborhoods and the only grocery store around there now since the other one closed. So staff is here to give us a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council members, that's a great segue. That's exactly right. This was a special project requested by Councilmember Studley really late in the budget process last year. It was one of those kind of June amendments. And I think Parks and Rec and Public Works sort of threw together some numbers for her. What we need today is guidance from you. Our numbers were way off. This project is grown by quadruple the cost, and we're not quite sure what to do next. So we're here to beg for some guidance and direction. I have with me Tim Miles. You may not know Tim. He doesn't come to too many of the meetings, but Tim is our capital projects engineer and manages many projects. Scott Sturts is actually on vacation, so I think Tim is technically filling in for Scott. But Tim will take you through. We spent the last half of the year analyzing this project. We did reach out for some engineering assistance from EST here in Norman, Oklahoma City, and they've done a really nice engineering analysis of this. But the bottom line is the project is really complicated and really expensive and well in excess of the budget. So we need to know what to do, whether you want to kill the project and move the money into other sidewalks or what you'd like to do. So Tim will take you through kind of the details here.
Thanks, Sean. So as this first slide shows, basically the general area of the project, and the goal is to get pedestrians between Colonial Estates and the Wood Creek Addition to the Walmart area, or even the other businesses on the west side of the Walmart. As Sean mentioned, Councilmember Studley had put this in the fiscal year 2023 budget. Our initial estimate was $425,000, but we knew this was a very complex project, so we felt like we needed to get a consultant on board. And EST was on our on-call selection, so we selected them, and they did the study for us. Basically, we wanted to have them evaluate various routes. We knew that the terrain between the neighborhoods and Walmart was basically a creek area, and so there was going to be challenges associated with that. We wanted to, because of the various cost limitations, we wanted to look at paving, different types of options, how the creek crossing would need to look, if retaining walls were needed because of nothing's really flat out in that area. Basically, just tie down the costs so we could have a better idea moving forward. And this cost estimate cost $21,000. So that came out of the original budget. Basically, what they provided us in the report was two separate routes. They're very similar, and this is kind of just an overall picture of them. The option A is the pinkish color on the slide, and then the green is option B. As I mentioned, we looked at various paving options and then some bridge design options as well. So I'm going to get into those as we go through the presentation. This is kind of a closer look at the general area. You can see that it is close to the creek, and it also crosses. It's also in the floodplain area. There's a black line on the outside. This black line basically is the floodplain area. At the east side of it, that's kind of the upper end of the drainage area, so that is actually outside of the floodplain. And then something not pictured, but next to the creek is an actual floodway, and the green line is very close to the floodway, so it would need some special considerations if we went with that particular option. It also shows here the existing trail that we would connect to that's part of the Wood Creek Park. And then the existing street that we would tie into at Telluride Lane that has an existing sidewalk that would take us onto Walmart and farther west if desired. So option A, both the options have a lot of similarities. The proposed design is for an 8-foot wide sidewalk. On this particular option, it would affect 4 parcels. 2 of them are city, and they're basically on the eastern part of the area, and then 2 are private. And those would require right-of-way to do the construction. And it crosses Bishop Creek. Both of the options would require a city floodplain permit and also probably a 404 permit for the stream crossing, which is basically the lesser of the requirements. So this is kind of a close-up of the option A. In addition to the plan view that you see in the purple, it also shows a profile. The existing ground kind of gets washed out, but at the beginning, at Telluride Lane, there's basically a fill area that goes down towards the creek, and some of the area actually shows fill in the floodplain area. And then as it parallels or is inside the floodplain, there's some cut that's in that area, and we hope that the earthwork balances out so that we won't need additional compensatory storage because we can't have additional fill in the floodplain than what we have today. You can see how close it gets to the apartment complexes. If I can get my pointer again, right here, it's basically right behind the apartment complexes. There's an existing sidewalk back there today, but this would be outside of that one. Option B, again, it would have 8-foot wide sidewalk. This one only needs right away from 3 parcels. One of the city parcels is missed with this alignment. It's a little bit longer, so the cost on option B is a little more, and we will get into those costs a little bit later. It places the sidewalk farther away from the apartments, so some may see that as an advantage, some may see it as a disadvantage, depending on, you know, your perspective. But it does get you real close to the floodway, so there would be some concerns with that. But we believe the permitting would be about the same, with a 404 federal permit and a city floodplain permit. On this profile, basically, since we're going farther down into the creek, and in order to meet ADA requirements and not exceeding the 5% grade, there's additional fill that would go into this one. And this project would have additional earthwork in addition to what you would need for the sidewalk, just to create compensatory storage so that we don't have additional fill in the floodplain. Otherwise, it's very similar. They both start and end. They both start at Telluride Lane and end at the existing trail at Wood Creek Park. So this shows basically the floodplain and the floodway differences, just kind of to give you an idea of how close the two alignments are located. Both of them, and it also shows the ownership on this particular slide. So this black line is the property line here, which shows CH Realty, Durango, Villacito owns this property, and then the 2 City of Norman properties are right here.
Sean, the purpose of the ownership of the 2 City of Norman properties, that's just floodway, stormwater management, real estate?
Parkland, I think mostly is how it was acquired. It is floodway and floodplain as well, but I think it was acquired for parks.
Yes. So moving on to the different pavement alternatives, we looked at concrete, which would be a 5-inch thick reinforced concrete. The advantages of that is it's the most durable. Asphalt would be another option with 4 inches of asphalt over a 6-inch gravel base. Because of the base requirements and the constructability issues of getting the asphalt in that particular area, the asphalt cost is actually a little bit more than concrete, or not enough to make a difference, because the concrete's easier for city staff to maintain. So we basically are recommending either concrete or decomposed granite. The disadvantage of the decomposed granite is it's going to be a lot more labor intensive to maintain, especially given the area it is close to the creek and a lot of runoff going that direction. So we're really not proposing decomposed granite either, but we will have some costs showing those options. Then looking at bridges, so the most basic type bridge is on the left side, the connector truss, and the minimum cost for a bridge then for a 100-foot span, and this would be a 10-foot wide, so it'd be a little bit wider than the sidewalk, would be $550,000, $500. It would be a single span over the entire creek, and then there's multiple options that if you want to be more aesthetically pleasing, you have options like this Keystone one, but everything, basically the base price is $550,000 and it goes up from there, which is over our original staff estimate. So not really recommending going over on that. So basically when we compare the costs, so we looked at the two options, option A and B, and then the concrete versus decomposed granite. And as you can see, there's not a big cost difference between either the concrete or the decomposed granite. So it's fairly easy to recommend the concrete option if that's what you want to move forward with. It does include pedestrian lighting. There's contingencies in these costs. Just because we've seen so much inflation lately, we have to have reasonable contingencies. And it does not include right-of-way acquisition that we estimate between $125,000 and $300,000. I did kind of look at a breakdown of the cost estimates, and really the sidewalk cost is really a small portion of this amount. It's about 9% of the cost, but grading is almost 18% of the cost. And there's a retaining wall that's needed to help maintain your ADA cross slopes, and that one was about 10% of the cost. So it's more than the paving itself. And of course, the bridge is 52% of the cost. So
And the bridge is in the per linear foot cost.
yes, it's in the per linear foot cost, yes. So basically, these costs that you're seeing here are everything except for right-of-way.
Councilmember Grant?
Are there any grants for the ADA parts of this project?
There is a grant program coming up, call for projects we think is going to be in August for an air quality grant. We're looking at all kinds of options, paths, trails, sidewalks, looking at some EV vehicles, number of things. So we're just learning every day more about that program. I don't know if this one would qualify for that, but it would take up, I mean, I think the maximum grant amount for any project is $1 million in that program.
So with that, we basically, council has a few options to consider. We do have the $404,000 that's unspent from the fiscal year 2023 that can be applied to the construction of this. So we would need an additional $1,052,000 for construction, and then up to $300,000 for right-of-way. Or the other option would be to postpone or terminate the project and allocate those funds to other sidewalks as desired. So that's kind of the things we're weighing at this point.
Councilmember Grant?
Also, this might seem a little silly, but with option A, there's a portion of the purple line that is city property and also out of the floodplain. And I was curious why you didn't go from there to that, I don't know what that road is, but there's that, I'll just get up and show
Yeah,
it.
it's an apartment complex. They don't
Yeah, I don't think that gets you.
It cuts 2/3 of the project off, yeah. The shortest distance between two
I don't
things.
know.
That doesn't connect to the.
Yeah, it doesn't connect.
To the
Those
other
two
neighborhood.
complexes don't connect to each other.
Probably a drainage ditch there between the two.
Could it
Yeah.
go around the back of those? I don't know.
Let's go back to the original slide that shows the neighborhood.
Yeah, there's a wall in between them.
Yeah, there you go. I think you're talking about this one, and we think this is a drainage ditch, not a road.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't connect back to the Telluride or to the commercial area there.
So
It's private property to get.
Sean, on that map, can you show us, if you live up in the upper right, what is the road pathway to get to neighborhood Walmart?
Yeah, we think it's, again, Concord Drive is the collector. It connects here to Woodcrest Drive. Woodcrest Drive is the first one that ties back into Plassen. So you've got sort of a mix of sidewalks in there too. But you'd have to get to Wood Creek Drive and then walk down 12th Street or Plassen to get to the neighborhood market. Constitution is right here, so 7-Eleven, all the other commercial entities are there. But the neighborhood does connect to Plassen. It's just, I think this was desired to get an easier connection to these neighborhoods back here that would have to go back up through the other Wood Creek neighborhood to get there. Yeah, we think that's what the desire was.
Well, and how fast is the traffic on that, what is that, 20, or, I can't read it. So, No, the main one where
Oh, that's
Walmart's on.
24.
Yeah,
Or
20.
12,
Street,
sorry.
12th, that's US Highway 77, 12th Street.
So what's the 40 miles per hour in that area?
That's probably 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. I suspect average speeds are in excess.
Yeah.
So I
And,
could see why people would want an alternative route.
How wide's the sidewalk on 12th, Sean?
Yeah, there's a continuous sidewalk
5 foot.
there.
Is
I
it-
think it's a 5-foot sidewalk.
And I'm just thinking about options now that you see all the puzzle pieces on the table. Are there sidewalk gaps that could be closed, and is a wider sidewalk on 12th a possibility just based on existing right of way, et cetera?
I think, too, I don't know, I wish Councilor Studley was here, but I think the thinking from her and maybe the constituents was that parkland was almost connected to that, and the reality is it's not. It's private land.
Looks closer.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I would maybe suggest that we maybe keep this as a project. Maybe we leave $50,000 in it. And I don't know, Councilmember Ball can give us some feedback about what he would prefer to do. I don't think we would be willing to fund over $1 million for this project, but it could be a future project. Maybe it takes time to build up money to do it or something, or there's a grant that pays for half of it in the
Grant
future.
program, right.
So I would want to keep it like in our program as something to do in the future, but I don't know that we want to pay for that.
There's and I'll call it a feasibility study for a lack of a better term, that I think Visit Norman is putting together, and I think they're anticipating the delivery of the report just this summer. But it had to do with what the investment would be required in Norman to, kind of match the Arkansas investment in trails. And they are, known nationally as a wonderful place. People put bikes on cars, drive for 3 hours to go ride the trails. I don't
Just
know
need the
if.
largest corporation in the world to be headquartered in
Yep.
our town.
I- If I mean, because when you describe it and you see it, it almost feels more like a trails project than it does necessarily a sidewalk
No, it
project.
fits with the Trails Master Plan, using the stormwater channels as natural corridors. So, I mean, it fits into that for me.
And I will add that we anticipate a Parks Master Plan coming in the next, to y'all guys, in the next couple of years, and we've talked in staff, we haven't presented it to you, but we're also gonna make that a Parks and Trails Master Plan, and that could also be defined in the future.
Councilor Shu?
Yeah, kind of adding on to that whole discussion about trails, and I think, this completely blew the bank. Not that I don't think that it is a worthwhile project, and I would love to see more of these things around our city, but I'm wondering too, yes, it feels more like a trail. I'm wondering if there are opportunities as we think about what the next iteration of Norman Forward 2 is going to look like, if there could be some component of trail system that we're thinking about that kind of get added to that package. And I think something like this, where we already have a plan, we've got the specs, for all intents and purposes, shovel ready, I guess, outside of like acquiring right of way and things like that. But I think this is where we have opportunities. So like Councilmember Holman is saying, like, keep it in the pipeline, but clearly we don't have $1.3 million to put towards this. So I would like to see, we've talked a lot about sidewalks in the last couple of months, and I think the last couple of years. And so being able to utilize that where it makes sense, I think would be more appropriate in this situation.
And council may determine, based on what they see in the feasibility study on trails and how that could very well lead to a major component of Norman Forward 2, when we say trail and, multimodal transportation corridors, we're thinking 8-foot concrete and lit, but the Trails Master Plan, it may say 10 feet, and we want it all to be lit like this, and so you wouldn't want to do it early and then have it not fit with the whole rest of how the trail system might develop out. But yet, when you see it, it definitely feels trail-like and not necessarily sidewalk-like.
So I have another question too about, are these communities ones that have HOAs? Do we know?
Great question. I bet they had them created, whether they're active or not. I
Yeah,
don't
just
know.
thinking about like, if there's a, you know, I guess a massive outcry for this needing to be a thing, I wonder if, you know, if there was an HOA or if the residents in, you know, those additions, would come to the table to, because this is, you know, I think very specifically located for a very specific group. And so if there would be kind of some level of match or kind of skin in the game, I guess,
Right.
to provide this service to them. Not that I think that they should have to fund potentially the whole thing if it works into like a larger master plan, but you know, there might be some outreach to think about from their perspective and like understanding like, hey, this is really what it's going to cost. I don't know that the city has this amount of money.
Sure.
But
We're happy to follow up with Councilmember Ball. We've not really had a conversation yet. I don't
Our
know.
phones are not ringing off the hook saying, please hurry and get this done. It's not, we're not hearing that kind of demand for it.
I mean, Councilmember Stibbett said they lived in the neighborhood. I think that was part of the.
Yeah.
Right.
Was that she noticed it or seen, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah.
So the way it would work, there's really nothing to do today. The capital funds roll from budget year to budget year. So if you do nothing, that remaining balance will roll into '24. And maybe we can come back to this committee and talk about if you want to allocate that to some other sidewalk, that sort of go down the priority list and do a mid-year change.
Yeah, what I would recommend is, yeah, that we keep this as a potential future project, and maybe we keep a little bit of funds in there. for it.
placeholder.
Yeah, placeholder. Take the balance, maybe fund whatever is the number one sidewalk project in Ward 1. And then use the remainder to whatever the other remaining top priority sidewalks are in the rest of the city.
Great.
So I don't know, it's
Yeah.
$50,000 holder for it.
That's great.
And then the
We'll make
rest,
that happen.
Ward 1 top priority project, and then the rest, whatever the other priorities. in the
Whatever
city.
was next on the.
Yeah.
So Sean, that money has
Sidewalk
been,
list.
it's been appropriated already,
Yes.
so council's given permission to spend it.
Yeah.
And typically, we award an annual contract for sidewalks with a cement contractor or two, and they just give us a price per linear foot or square foot, and we just keep going down the list until we spend all those dollars, so. I don't know if there's a whole lot of future council action other than the award of the annual contract for the work, flat work to be
We
done.
can sure bring back those the Ward 1 option to make sure everyone's understanding what we're doing with that and try to balance the dollars. Wanted to mention, Councilmember Schuler, you mentioned something that just triggered a memory. We've had this debate quite a bit. Oklahoma statutes have this weird glitch in them that any elections, any tax elections for trails requires a 60% majority vote to pass. And so council has really struggled with that, even in the original Trails Master Plan, the Parks Master Plan, the Stormwater Master Plan. The idea was to roll that together and have one election. And when they learned that, we sort of pulled off the trails and said, ooh, we're not sure we can get 60%. So we pulled the trails out of there. We've really never gotten back to that. So it's something that we really need to. The council tried in 2005 on a trails proposition, and it failed. I don't know how badly it failed, but it had to get 60%. It didn't.
Do we know why it has the 60% threshold?
I
Like,
don't.
What is the thinking of that?
It's a good question. We've had that debate. I don't know the origin of that. It's been there a long time.
Seems to me a little short-sighted, given that trail systems are so, beneficial
Right.
to, quality of life and, talking about air quality and thinking about preserving certain sections of our, parkland and wilderness area. And given that we have so much room
Yeah.
for it, in terms of like Lake Thunderbird and, just thinking about our eco
Yeah.
tourism
Just don't
opportunities,
know.
so that's frustrating.
Councilmember Grant?
I would just say that in the one Norman meetings we were having, it sounded like all the folks that had assembled there were very supportive of enhancing our trail system. So I do think if we did push with it, that our community would vote for it.
And it is interesting that vote requirement, if it's part of Norman Forward and a sales tax, it's 50% plus one.
Right.
Versus standalone geobond for that use, 60%. Head scratch.
It's odd. It's-
I'll also add our recent needs analysis, which was a scientific survey that went out. The number one most wanted thing in the park system was more trails. By far.
Maybe it's time. It's just a little harder to get to that threshold.
That's odd.
Okay.
60.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, any other further comments, questions? No?
Thanks, guys.
Okay, that is it then. I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.